So friends, in this video we will be continuing with our last session where we have talked about software testing in brief, and what are the various activities involved in software testing, what is difference between verification, validation, cost of quality, difference in Q and QC, different stages, phases, different approaches of testing like top down and bottom up approach, what are the various types of testing, then how the project management has to be done in case of software testing, how the risk management has to be done, right, how the configuration management, change request management, version control, version management, release management, all these things we have covered. Today we'll again continue with that momentum, and we'll cover the software testing life cycle phases. So we have here test planning, test case development, test environment. So this is our test environment setup. Okay, this is test execution and test cycle closure. And this diagram shows two types of software life cycle. So one is your development life cycle and another is testing life cycle. So it also has the requirement then, but here we have the instead of design or something, we have test planning, we have test design, and then what approach we are going to follow, that decision we will take, test execution, test reporting, test environment setup, test coverage, and like that. All these activities are the part of your typical testing life cycle. Okay, here again we have the analysis, specification, design, implementation, and then in testing and integration we have test requirement analysis, test planning, test case development, environmental setup, test execution, and test cycle closure. And after all these things it will go for our operation and maintenance after the release. Testing levels are there, various levels, very simple it is. We have unit, we have integration, system testing, acceptance testing. So in unit we test the individual component, we have the integrated testing, we have the testing of the complete system, complete entire system in system testing phase, and then we have the acceptance testing. Again here we are talking about level 1 2 3 4, unit, integration, system, and acceptance testing. Unit testing done most of the time by the developer, integration testing done by the tester, system testing by the tester, and acceptance testing done by the end user. Another way of representing levels of testing: unit, integration, system, user acceptance testing. In unit we test function, the function 1, function 2, function 3. Integration we test the module like module 1, module 2, and module 3. System testing, alright, we have the various approaches where complete system is being tested from top down approach, big bang approach, bottom up approach. Then we have the concept of where some of the modules are not ready and we have to test it. Then we work on the concept of stub and driver. Through this concept the simulated modules are being created. I will cover this part in some other video, but for time being assume that your module for the testing, other modules are not ready but your module is ready, you want to test it, so you will create a simulated module which is not ready, integrate both and test it. This is how the concept of stub and driver comes into picture. And the acceptance testing, we have alpha testing, we have beta testing, and gamma testing, and all these things. In unit testing we test the component, we test the function, all these things. So you can see here in this diagram, unit testing life cycle is also more or less similar to the activities which we have seen just now. So we check out the code from the code repository, make the changes, execute the unit test cases, fix the defects, then we conduct the review, and after review it's being checked in into the repository. So this is your unit test life cycle. For unit testing, we use some tools. So we have simple test, HTML unit test, N unit, embedded unit, J unit. All these are some of the tools used for unit testing. Integration testing, if you want to explain in simple way, you integrate the various modules available for testing and then give some input, check the interfaces, and testing is being completed. So in integration testing, we get the complete understanding of the application under test. Okay, we identify the workflow of the different module, get an overview of what each module does, take an instance of the way data is being transferred from one module to another, get the view of the exact data entry and data exit of the application, segregate the application to match the testing pattern, identify and create the test condition based on the data flow, draft the test cases with the deep analysis of the condition, and start integration testing of the module. So these are some of the stages or activities which we have to conduct during integration testing. Integration testing, we have incremental approach, big bang approach. In incremental, we have top down, we have bottom up, and sandwich approach are being followed in case of integration testing. Acceptance testing, as we have seen, is being conducted sometime by, we involve end user also in that, where is also called as user acceptance testing. So we have the development, we have the testing, and we have the deployment. In development, we need to build the code, we conduct the code review, and then we conduct testing. So we conduct local testing, internal QA testing, alpha testing, beta testing, and final user acceptance testing. And on deployment, it's being released to the user, we conduct the maintenance as needed, and further enhancement is also being done. Now testing methodology, we'll talk about it also. In testing, we have two major category, black box and white box testing. These two are there. Black box testing techniques, if you see in this block diagram, you have here the equivalent partitioning system, we have the boundary value analysis, we have decision table, we have graph based testing, error guessing, state transition testing, or like that. So all this comes under black box testing techniques. White box is more of a structural testing, which is your statics testing, where code walkthrough is being done, code inspection is being done, or like that. Next category is functional testing, where on the basis of functional specification and we give some input to the system, testing will be conducted, and then the comparison of the actual versus expected results, expected behavior are being done as a part of functional testing. So it's input output based testing we have. In case of system testing, we have module A, B, C, D, and system tests are being conducted. So we have the test definition, test planning, test design, test execution, test automation, bug testing, and fixing. Everything is being done as a part of system testing. Regression testing is a different concept, where the module which is being changed because of some bug or because of some change request and all, we have to retest the application. So in regression testing, we can retest all, we can only test the selected one on the basis of the priority. So the purpose of regression testing is to see if some changes are being done in the existing code or system, what is the, whether it has impacted at some other places or not, that also we have to check. So that's why it is called regression testing. Next category is your sanity testing, where we build it and we do the sanity check whether build can be further tested or not. If it is not proper, some test cases we run, and if it is not ready for the test, we reject the build. Okay, and if it is ready for the test, we pass the builds and then we go for the further testing. So more of a like a sanity check whether we can go ahead with the further detailed in-depth testing or not. Then comes user acceptance testing, where user will also get involved and they will accept the system or code or whatever is being developed. Load testing. In load testing we check for the volume, we stress, scalability, performance, and all these things are tested. Load testing, what we do, we try to put a load on the system and test it whether it is going to fail or not. Then we have the stress testing. In stress testing we try to put more load in the system, but at the same time we will reduce the number of resources available during testing. Suppose the memory requirement for testing is some gigabyte or megabyte, whatever it is, we reduce that memory as a resource and try to put it stress on the system. So you can correlate it with the stress testing which the banking system goes through. It is in India, it is RBI. In case of USA, it is your Fed who will conduct the stress testing of the bank and declare whether the bank or this particular entity will be able to bear the further stress in the system or not. This is how it's being done. In the stress testing we do the module design, we have the coverage, we see what type of risk are there in the system and then try to see whether that particular system is going to work in the stressed loaded environment or not. Stress testing process is you detect the environment, find performance criteria, plan and design the stress test, configure the test environment, implement it, execute the test cases and analyze the result. This is how the stress testing is being conducted. Then we have the performance testing, where again we will try to check the performance of the system or the product or the code. So here also we identify the performance scenario, we rerun the test, right? We identify the scenario, we plan and design the performance test script, we configure the test, we execute the test, we check the result, we get the result, we analyze the result, and then if there are some bottlenecks or something, test will be rerun. Performance testing includes load, stress, all this type of testing, scalability, volume testing, and all these things are there. Another type of testing is installation and uninstallation type of testing. On various operating system, various environment, the software will be installed and testing will be done. Recovery testing, in case system fails, how quickly we are able to recover, so that type of testing is also being conducted. Then the compatibility testing, compatibility testing is being done on the hardware, operating system, software, network, browser, device, mobile version, and all these things. So with respect to that, the compatibility testing are being conducted. If you see this diagram, whether it will run on all the platform of Windows or not. So Windows 98, 2000, 98, Vistas, Win 7, 8, 8 point something, Mac, Unix, and other platform. Then the browser, Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, and other browsers. And then the hardware testing under different type of RAM, hard disk, and processor. So this is one type of compatibility testing on the operating system, on the browser, and the hardware we do. Exploratory testing is a more of a ad hoc type of testing, which is not a formal testing. We don't prepare any plan, but we just try to explore and see how the system is working. And next is your comparison testing. We compare the strength and weaknesses of the product or software with our competitors product. Again, some detail on the exploratory testing. The stages are explore, you design the test, you execute, and then analyze the test results. In case of as we mentioned, acceptance testing, like that we have alpha testing, where it's being conducted on the limited user base. testing done when the development is nearing the completion. Minor design changes may still be made as a result of such testing. Beta testing is something which we conduct on the larger base. Testing when the development testing are essentially completed. Final bugs and problems need to be found before the release. Alpha testing, if you see the example here, it's like we alpha is being done within the internal team, beta is being done on the more wider larger user base, and we involve external team also in that. Difference in alpha and beta testing: alpha performed by the developer selected small team, conducted for software application, performed in virtual environment, involve both black and white box type of testing. Beta testing is something performed by the customer or other end users. It's conducted for the product, perform in real time environment, involve all type of black box testing, and only black box testing is being done. Mutation testing is something where we check the value mutation, we check the decision mutation and the statement mutation also. White box testing technique coverage, as we have seen: statement coverage, branch coverage, and the path coverage. Loop testing is also one type of white box testing where we check for the simple loop, nested loop, and unstructured loops and all these things. Then the statement coverage testing is there where we will check the statement or branch or condition of the coverage. Again, the white box testing where decision coverage example you can see: if then else, while, do, else are being checked as a part of white box testing. Then the decision coverage testing, again white box testing. Next is our incremental testing. So we'll keep on adding modules, function, features, and increase the scope of testing in incremental way. The type of incremental testing, if you really see here, the all phases are being covered: analysis, design, coding, test in increment 1, then increment 2, then increment 3, or like that. Then various approaches like top down, bottom up, and hybrid are being followed. Usability testing: whether system is useful, accessible, desirable, foundable, or like that. Configuration testing is being done on various type of configuration of software, operating systems, and all that. In this life cycle we have seen requirement, test planning, test case development, environment setup, test case execution, test cycle closure. Software, again this is the typical phases. Test planning, we have test management plan, schedule, resources, risk, all are being covered. In case of and one thing which I missed it, as a part of requirement we have system requirement specification, software requirement specification, customer requirement specification, products requirement specification, software requirement, hardware requirement, functional requirement, non-functional requirement. All those things are being covered as a part of this phase. Then planning will be done, and then test case development where we give unique ID to various test cases, scenarios, condition, input, output, steps to be covered. Then the test environment setup, server, operating system, and everything will be done. Then we run the test cases, and finally after the execution the closure report will be submitted. Before that bugs and everything will get fixed. Test plan content: typically it could have the objective, scope, methodology, approach, assumption, risk mitigation plan, contingency plan, risk and responsibility, schedule, defect tracking, test environment, in entry exit criteria, test automation, your effort estimation, test deliverables and templates. All these things are there. Another way of test planning could be your analyze the product, design the strategy, define the test objective, define the testing criteria, resource planning, environmental planning, scheduling, and the test deliverable. Then test planning of multiple suite test case, suite A, suite B, under that test cases and test data and All these things are being covered as a part of test plan. How to develop a test plan is like you analyze the product, develop the strategy, define the test objective, plan for the test environment, determine the deliverable, schedule, estimation, test criteria, and resource planning. All these things are being done. Test case writing is fairly easier. You define the input, output, test data, expected result, actual results, and all these things are done as these are some of the example of test cases. One very important type of test is your boundary value testing, where we conduct the test on the boundary of the input where the chances of failure of a system is very high. So that's why this is a very well accepted methodology of testing, where input as a boundary value is being given to the system and we test whether system is working properly or not. Test cases, we have the smoke test, balancing, all these things are being done. So test plan is there, test scenario is there, and test cases will come after the test scenario. This is a typical test case template where test shoot ID, test case ID, number, name, procedure, requirement,